I never pictured myself as someone who'd share personal details online, but here I am, needing to get something off my chest. Maybe some of you have been through something similar, or maybe you can offer advice. I'm 26 and my husband Eric is 27. We've been married for 5 years, and I thought everything between us was solid. At least, that's what I believed. When we met back in college, we just clicked instantly. He was dependable, caring, and romantic, while I was the one always pushing limits. He encouraged me to chase my passions, especially my work in feminism and women's rights. Before marriage, we made an agreement. I'd manage the home while Eric would take care of the bills and career side of things. Honestly, I didn't mind. I never loved housework, but it was better than working a job I didn't enjoy, and it gave me time to focus on what I cared about. Eric supported me, and for a while, our arrangement seemed to work well. He was thoughtful, affectionate, and generous. I never doubted our relationship. But as time went on, I started taking him for granted. I threw myself into nights out with friends, clubbing, dancing, living for the thrill. I loved the energy of the nightlife. Eric, on the other hand, preferred quiet evenings with a book or a movie. I began resenting him for not sharing my excitement. To me, he seemed boring, overly careful, and out of step with who I was becoming. I told myself that going out wasn't a big deal. It was just fun, harmless escape. But even though Eric never made a scene, I could tell my choices hurt him. When I stumbled home late, tipsy and covered in glitter, I saw the disappointment written on his face. He tried to talk about his feelings, but I brushed him off. I accused him of being controlling, of holding me back from enjoying life. Anytime he raised concerns, I twisted it, using my feminist beliefs as a weapon, calling him misogynistic or dismissing him as anti-feminist. It was my way of avoiding responsibility while justifying my actions. I was so focused on chasing independence and freedom that I ignored the distance growing between us. I didn't see how much I was eroding the love and trust that once defined our marriage. My selfishness was slowly breaking what we had, but I kept looking the other way. Then one night, it all boiled over. Eric and I had a date night planned, but I canceled on him last minute to go clubbing with my friends instead. He was understandably upset. He'd been looking forward to spending time together. But I snapped back, accusing him of being sexist for not supporting me. He let it go, not wanting to argue, but I could tell he was hurt. As I got ready, I put on a bold red dress. Eric asked me to change, saying it was too revealing and not appropriate for a married woman. To me, it sounded like control all over again. I didn't hear concern. I heard an attempt to suppress me. I refused to change, insisting his request was unreasonable and outdated. I accused him of being controlling, stubbornly holding my ground as the argument escalated. When my friends pulled up to get me, I stormed out without another word, leaving Eric behind, hurt and defeated. In the car, I felt a strange mix of anger and victory. I told myself I'd won, that I was right. But deep down, I knew something about it didn't feel right at all. When I came home later that night, Eric wasn't there. I tried calling and texting, but he never replied. I eventually went to bed, holding on to the hope that he'd return soon and we'd have a chance to talk. The next morning, he finally came back, but something about him was different. He wasn't angry or upset like I expected, just quiet, withdrawn, and distant. He moved around the house doing chores, yet his presence felt cold and disconnected. I could sense something was wrong, but he offered no explanation. Then, out of nowhere, he told me we'd be renewing our lease. The statement caught me completely off guard. It felt so random, especially since we had already agreed months ago that we wouldn't renew. Our plan had been to start house hunting since the lease was ending soon. Confused and shocked, I pressed him for an explanation, but he only said something had come up and we'd need to put our plans on hold. No details. No real answers. No matter how much I asked, he refused to elaborate. Frustrated and unsettled, I eventually stopped pushing, telling myself he'd explain later. But then came another revelation. Eric told me I needed to get a job. I was stunned and demanded to know why. Calmly, he explained that if I was going to embrace feminism and independence, then I should also contribute financially. He accused me of twisting feminism to silence him and disrespect him, especially after the way I had treated him the night before. From that point forward, he said, everything in our relationship would be split equally. Bills, chores, responsibilities, 50-50. I was shocked by his firmness. This wasn't the Eric I knew. For so long, he had been patient, accommodating, and willing to carry more than his share. But now he was drawing a line, and I could tell he meant it. His words struck me deeply. It felt like I had pushed him into this corner, and now I was being forced to face the consequences. A mix of guilt, anger, and confusion left me speechless. I had always seen myself as strong and independent, but now I was being confronted with my own contradictions. Still, instead of taking his words as a chance to change, I resented him. I felt like he was trying to control me, to cage me in. It didn't feel like a wake-up call. It felt like punishment for being myself. Begrudgingly, I started searching for work. Through one of Eric's contacts, I landed a job at a restaurant, but I despised it. I looked down on my coworkers, treated them poorly, and acted entitled. At the time, I blamed Eric for all of it. I told myself he was punishing me for being a feminist, when in reality, he was just trying to create balance in our relationship. The resentment only grew. Every request he made felt like another attempt to control me. If he asked me to help with chores, I saw it as him putting me in my place. If he suggested saving money, I saw it as him limiting my freedom. Arguments became frequent and heated. I lashed out, accusing him of misogyny and hypocrisy. Even when he tried to calmly explain his perspective, I shut him out, refusing to listen. I was so wrapped up in my anger and sense of righteousness that I couldn't see the damage I was doing. Looking back, I can see how toxic my mindset was. I was so determined to prove myself right, to defend my feminist ideals, that I lost sight of what really mattered. Our love, our partnership. But at the time, I couldn't see past my own ego. I kept pushing him further away, convinced he was the one destroying us. Eventually, I began seeking validation outside of our relationship. I told myself it was harmless, just flirting and dancing, but deep down, I knew it was rebellion. I was angry, hurt, and reckless. I never told Eric, knowing it would devastate him, and I justified it by saying it was better he didn't know. But the truth was, I was avoiding responsibility. It all came crashing down when a friend of mine told Eric about my behavior. I was blindsided. The betrayal from my friend stung, but even more painful was facing Eric's confrontation. At first, I denied everything. I blamed him for not meeting my needs, even though I knew the fault was mine. That's when Eric told me he wanted a divorce. He admitted he'd already been considering ending things, and this was simply the breaking point. When he told me to leave, I was devastated. Moving back in with my parents was humbling. I could see the disappointment in their faces, and it cut deeply. I had let down Eric, my parents, and myself, and I had no one to blame but me. The shame and regret weighed heavily, and I didn't even know where to start rebuilding. I shared my story online, not even sure why. Maybe I was searching for guidance in the middle of my confusion. Many people criticized me, some harshly, but there were also helpful comments, and I was grateful for those. I kept looking for work but struggled to land anything, and the divorce continued to move forward. Eric was firm. There would be no reconciliation. When the divorce was finalized, I didn't walk away with much. No alimony, no property division, we had no children or shared debt, so it was all straightforward. Still, it felt empty. My parents were disappointed, but we all knew that dragging it out would only waste money. Meanwhile, the job hunt became a harsh reality check. My portfolio was weak, my skills outdated, and the pressure from my parents to contribute financially grew heavier. Looking back now, I see how my resentment and dismissiveness poisoned our relationship. Every harsh word, every refusal to listen, every selfish choice pushed us further apart. Instead of working with Eric, I let my pride and ego dictate everything. I took him for granted, forgetting how much he had given and how often he stood by me. By the time I realized how wrong I had been, it was already too late. If there's one lesson I want others to take from my story, it's this: don't let pride, resentment, and disrespect destroy your relationship. Communicate openly. Value the person you love. Don't take them for granted. Once they're gone, all you're left with is regret. Right now, things are hard. The future feels uncertain. But I'm clinging to hope. I'm grateful for my family's support, and I know I'll eventually rebuild. I'm determined to move forward, but I'll never forget the lessons that came from losing everything.